Welcome to this week's edition of Special Prosecutor with Larry Klayman. I'm joined by my very good friend, colleague, and client, SIAKA MASSAQUOI, who's been on many times in the past. Very bright guy, super intelligent, very articulate, God-fearing person. And I want to get his thoughts on what's been going on with regard to the election. He is the vice chairman of the Republican Party of Los Angeles County. And he has in a position to really be observing what's going on and understanding what's going on. Of course, as I said many times, as the head of a public interest group, I don't tell people who to vote for, although I think everybody can probably figure it out. But I got to laugh, SIAKA. I want to open this up to the interview that Kamala Harris did yesterday with Tim Walz and put it in context of what's going on.
Yeah.
But, you know, their motto is, and I saw somebody with a T-shirt, basically, who almost attacked me at Starbucks weeks ago. Some fat guy that was in there that calls me white trash because they see me with this jacket. You know, I went to the Trump inauguration, and I have to laugh. But, you know, the motto of Harris and Waltz is, don't go back. I think it could be changed to, instead go under. Okay, so,
I like that. I mean,
they will put us under. But I watched this interview last night. I don't know if you had a chance to watch it, but what struck me was not only the fact that Kamala Harris physically didn't look good. She wasn't made up well. It was a bad photo shoot in effect. She was hunched over a desk and she was staring down. And I think, as Jesse Waters said, she was staring down because she had to figure out what to say. She couldn't look at the interviewer, Dana Bash. Not that they were terribly hard questions, believe me.
right.
But Tim Waltz towered over her on the left. And of
Right.
course, she didn't answer any questions. She just repeated the platitudes that she did at the Democrat National Convention. Waltz got caught a couple times. He wouldn't answer a question about lying about his military record and lying
Mhm.
about how he feels about, artificial insemination. I don't know the exact acronym on that with regard to child.
The IBF.
Boy, he looked like a deer caught in the headlights. I mean, he could not get out of that. But anyway, give me your thoughts on where this all is going right now, because it's been going obviously quite well for Harris and Waltz up to now because they have the leftist media behind them. I don't call them the liberal media, it's the leftist media.
Yeah.
And but I think that basically the cracks are starting to show. And if Trump would just control himself to some degree, he might actually gain some ground here, because right now he's behind in most national polls. But give me your thoughts.
Well, I'm with you when it comes down to like what's going on when it comes down to the numbers and going up against the leftist media, because that's really what's happening right now. We have a few different things. When Joe Biden dropped out and Kamala came in, like the left, they're minded, right? It's not as much about individualism. So as a hive mind, the energy was in a bad place for Joe. They needed anyone. You could have came in there with somebody dressed up as Winnie the Pooh. They would have been like, "Yeah, we're all in now. Let's go." And a lot of them, and at the same time, RFK was polling about 8.3%. And if you looked at after they switched to Kamala, RFK dropped in many polls down to about 3%. So that 5% that RFK lost were those disenfranchised Democrats, and to me, it's why that RFK decided to drop out in certain areas to make sure that he helped Trump in certain areas and hurt Kamala and others. So what we're seeing isn't. I think we had a conversation about this, but I like to implore a lot of Republicans, conservatives, especially the baby boomer generation, is we're still living in a society that is controlled by the left when it comes down to perception. So they've been making her look like, from Time magazine to all the different softball segments done on the legacy media. They've been making her look like she's great, and that 5% that left RFK then pumps in there, and it only has her up by 1 or 2 in certain places, if at all. So it's real when I really stop and look at it. This is all manufactured, and what you described about the way she was moving and sitting. Rumors are she's drinking a lot more. So as somebody who's an alcoholic and I'm watching, I'm seeing someone who doesn't want to be there. I'm seeing someone when all of a sudden someone with a handler as well. And let's really look at that. Like, she came in when they talk about one don't want to move back, she came in and you look at the difference between her and Trump when they picked the VP. She could have picked Josh Shapiro, who comes off more eloquent than Tim, but we know didn't want to overshadow her. And she picks a guy where Trump picks a 40-year-old guy. She picks a 70-year-old man, or 60, late 60s, early 70s. So she's actually picking older, where Trump is picking younger. And what we need to do as conservatives and Republicans, like, Trump's a rock star. Let him do him. He's a rock star. Like, we got to stop trying to hold him back to let the hot girl in school who we finally got a date on to dress the way we want her to. Let her be who she is because she's hot. Trump's the hot rock star. We need to start going around and going, those numbers are manufactured by the media. Continue the work to the people. Because the people right there are the ones that are in the middle trying to figure out, is the media right? Or is this energy of him, having a billion views on X for just having a conversation, sitting down with podcasters over 500 million live views or 500,000 live views with millions of views later on? Like, that's a rock star. That's a rock star. So we have to also realize, man, we're being played to think she's doing that great because she really isn't. The left just left RFK because they could at least be somewhat happier with this choice on the surface as opposed to they were before. At least
Let me
that's
ask you a quick question. Where does it come from that she's an alcoholic? I mean, it kind of makes sense when you see the way she reacts to things.
Well, I said as an alcoholic, I recognize that I'm hearing she's drinking a lot more. I don't know if she's an alcoholic. I'm not saying that about her, but I'm recognizing there's been unnamed sources, and you know how the left works. Unnamed sources are good as a name source, so we can go there on this case. There have been a lot of unnamed sources saying she's been drinking a lot more, and watching that behavior and watching the crunch over. It also was watching someone. There was a report about how Gen Zers are going to job interviews with their parents. That's what that looked like. Like, your parent was over there watching you, and you'd be like, "You better say the right thing, or you're going to get in trouble later."
Funny thing is that Waltz wasn't of any help. I mean, he actually destroyed the interview in many ways, notwithstanding how poorly she did, because he clearly got caught lying, and he didn't have a response for it. And even Dana Bash, who's milquetoast, made him look bad.
Yes.
I mean, she came back and asked some questions. Why didn't he answer this question? And he still wouldn't answer the question. So,
well, I thought that Dana, I mean, for the way that was set up and how she is, much like the first debate, I was really surprised, because I think at the same time, like, these people, the left is loyal to a point. They're loyal to a point until it's going to completely destroy their own personal reputation. And that's what I personally saw with CNN. And I think that's what we saw there, where, look, she had to ask some of those questions, or she would have been, looked at as foolish. She had to.
Yeah, that's true. But the way she asked it, it was very sheepish, like, gee,
very like, I'm sorry to have to ask you this, but
right.
Yeah, like, no, typical. That's your job, dude. I love it.
Well, here's the interesting thing too, is that, everybody knows that you have been persecuted and now prosecuted by the Gestapo of the Biden Justice Department. You at most put your foot in the Capitol for about a split second and pulled it out.
71.
Yeah, 71 seconds, and you did no harm, and you came late, and etc. Okay, and you are obviously going to trial next year. Hopefully Trump will win and he will pardon everyone, as he should. But J6 is a big part of their campaign, because it's about Donald Trump. And that's the slogan: don't go back. Don't go back to a dictator. Don't go back to someone who tried to overturn the election, J6, etc. Now they're about ready to bring Liz Cheney into the scene. I was just reading this morning.
My God, keep getting older and older. You gotta love it.
I feel sorry for the woman, not because of her making a fool of herself, but the fact that she unfortunately looks like her father in a skirt. Okay. Her dad is actually more attractive, I would say, in a skirt. But in any event, I want to get your thoughts on this, and how you and others have been used as the whipping boys, as the fulcrum for the primary thrust of the Democrat Party to harm Trump and to get him to lose.
Well, it's the example. I think her, like Adam Kinglinser, however you say his name, like, it's hard to understand. He's crying most of the time when he's up there. But Kinzinger, there you go.
Pathetic
It's
figure.
something that we've seen for a while, and this goes back to a conversation I've been having that I've been seeing on online and on X, and I just kind of weighed in recently. Is that when we as conservatives, as Christians, as Republicans, like you consider yourself a true Christian or Republican or whatever you want to call it, if we when we don't participate, we allow room for these individuals to come in and poison the well. And now they have been used as props since January 6th on CNN and MSNBC's as, look, these Republicans think this way. When we saw what happened in their primaries where they just got primary to obscurity when it comes down to their position. So it tells you that's actually not what the party is. It doesn't align with them like that, but it's a lack of us being civically involved that allows these neocons or these rhinos, you call it, if you will, to come in there and not only lay ground but then infest everywhere else, because then they start getting influence and funds from not just one side of the aisle but from both sides of the aisle, because they're the yes men. They can come in there and always throw a little wrench in what Republicans think actually comes out and say, because they go, well, no, we don't all really think that, and I'm afraid my party has to. I mean, I've listened to people and Republicans say on these channels, oh, I don't recognize my party anymore, so that's why I will vote for a Democrat, because I don't recognize my party. It's like, you were never a Republican, because Republican just in its nature says is for smaller government. So even if you don't like Trump, voting for a bigger government is anti-Republican values. So you weren't a Republican, Anna Navarro and whoever else that they come out and they claim this stuff because they're voting for bigger government. I think we just got to start to call things more as we see them and not be afraid of the pushback anymore, because the pushback has gotten us so quiet that we're scrambling just to protect our kids from sexualized books in schools, guys. That is like,
Well, true, and
wow,
that's
they can,
actually the segue to one of the topics that American people don't appreciate. Some very intelligent people don't appreciate. Oh, I'm going to vote for this person as president. That's really kind of insignificant. It's who that person brings along with him or her to the White
Yes.
House and into the administration. And what we've got in the now Harris-Biden administration, because she's now in charge, Joe Biden's off vacationing, in Delaware or California or God knows where. And even when he's, in the White House, he's not there mentally or physically. But this is something that people have to remember. And what we've got right now in the Harris-Biden regime is a freak show. I mean, they're a
Yes.
bunch of freaks, okay? But just think what's going to happen if she wins and you bring in all these LGBTQ activists in there. Think what happens to the Department of Education. I was looking at a video this morning, a woman from Florida who has a 13-year-old kid, young girl, and the LGBTQ, the gay, lesbian, transgender, politicized aspect of the whole movement has burrowed into nearly every Florida public school. They have guides on what to say and what to do. Their agenda is to convert these kids into becoming gay, lesbian, and hopefully to the extreme transgender. And they cut the parents out of any discussions. They don't include them. These kids are vulnerable. They're going through a lot of different things, particularly if you're 13. And fortunately, this woman caught it, and she's very knowledgeable in terms of psychology and everything else, was able to arrest her daughter being taken hostage to this. So that's that. And then think about what happens in other respects, too, in terms of who comes in to this administration. Give us your thoughts, SIAKA, on that, because it's going to be even a bigger freak show. Because look, who supports Kamala Harris?
Yeah.
Bernie Sanders. Bernie Sanders, self-hating, leftist, Jew, Marxist. Okay, I actually point these things out because I'm of Jewish descent myself. I'm a Jewish Christian, of course, but these people are not Jews. They're Marxists. They're communists. And these people are going to take control, not just the Jewish left, but every radical group, radical blacks, radical feminists, radical, know what. And it is going to be an even bigger freak show, because Biden, as bad as he was some, governor to keep it from going totally ultra leftist.
Well, it's the generals of those different, the leftist Jews or leftist blacks, leftist, all these different organizations. They're pining they're ready to go all in. You know, this is what's been since the 60s in the civil rights operation. It's like these communists have been infesting from different movements to the school system, as you talked about earlier, to city councils. So they're chomping at the bit for someone like a Kamala Harris to actually have the full throes of the presidency. You know, as when you mentioned about Joe's playing the smarmy, corrupt politician who just goes with the wind. Kamala actually means what she says about this stuff. She was raised in a radical home, you know, radically socialist communist home in Jamaica as an identifying Indian woman. So it's funny that people are missing who they're going to be standing next to. And I made a statement about this, and you're right. Like, who are they coming with at this point too? And it goes back to about being civically involved and being bold about your stance. Because if you believe that, as a Christian, for example, if you believe that you have the God of the Most High on your side, how are you afraid of individuals that are mutilating their bodies? How are you afraid of individuals that like don't understand a mental disease when they see it? How are you afraid of individuals that are afraid to defend themselves? How are you afraid of individuals that want to rely on the government to take care of them, not themselves?
How are you
So
afraid
we
of
have to start
individuals that are murdering unborn babies? You know,
that are slaughtering them and have been for almost 80 years.
yeah.
So, you know, we have to start to really look, who are you standing next to and who are they standing next to? And when you start to look around on that, you're like, well, I said it, I go, it's kind of like, it's pretty, if this was a movie, it'd be pretty clear who the rebels are and who the empire is, you know, and I think we just have to, again, it goes back to messaging. We got to stop being afraid of it. We got to stop being afraid of where we are, because we're in a really dark place right now. We're not in a place where worrying about the less feelings are going to be like what maybe gets them to not call someone a racist anymore. No matter what you do or believe, they're always going to call you the names. Like, if everyone on the right or everyone in the middle or everyone who's against what they see over there, you need to understand today, no matter how soft you say it or how nicely you get it off right now, as soon as you disagree with them, it's a wrap. So it doesn't matter anymore. Stop
Yeah,
being
because
afraid of their you know, pushback or their literally childish name calling. Like, okay, you're racist, so what? If that was racism with Trump in office, I'd rather have that than this freedom and democracy option that they're offering. If
yes,
this is what it looks like.
as they say, it's like being called ugly by a frog. I mean, basically, because
Exactly.
they're racist. But you know, here's what we need to do, because we don't want to get to a situation where the only recourse is to go into the streets. Of course, you and I don't advocate that,
Yeah,
but the others
not
who
at all.
will, when you're pushed up against a wall and you have no way out, that's a formula for a bloody revolution. And I granted the American people generally are ill-informed, apathetic, not our supporters, but those that are out there, which explains a lot of what's going on today. And whatever you believe in the polls, there's too many people that support what's going on the left. But
Mm-hmm.
we need to take strong action. Of course, you know, you're doing your part. I'm going to ask you to tell the listeners and supporters, you know, where you are, what you're doing these days, but also Freedom Watch. I mean, we're in bad need of tax deductible contributions. We need to get bigger. We need more lawyers. We need more paralegals. We need to pay for more office space, etc. I have brought lawsuits recently against Joe Biden for defaming Sheriff Joe Arpaio, calling him a felon when Biden thought he was going to run and had to tear Trump down by using Arpaio. And also Kamala Harris, who participated in perhaps one of the biggest frauds in American history by telling the American people that Joe Biden was lucid mentally
Mm-hmm.
and capable physically. She committed a fraud. So I brought a case as a Florida voter and taxpayer in Florida court to have her declared invalid for the election, the upcoming election, based upon fraud, and to be taken off the ballot there.
Wow.
In Florida, you can sue for fraud as a voter, and it's not too
Really?
late.
Wow.
You know, fraud's
That's interesting.
for your statute of limitations, so I'm still within it. But here's the thing, is that the American people just can't sit there and be entertained by this election cycle. You know, Fox News
Mm-hmm.
24/7, the election. I mean, it's the only topic they talk about. Occasionally they throw in a little bit what's happening in Israel and the Middle East, but it's pure entertainment over and over again, all day long. Okay, that's what it is.
Well, that's where we are right now. That's the nature. I mean, that 24-hour news cycle. Thank you. It started with special thanks to the O.J. Simpson trial, and that starting with that, chase. They saw that everyone would watch, but that's where we are now, where the legacy media trying to keep up with each other have to just 24 hours a day, keep it going. But I think places like podcasts like these, you got your Timcast and your PBR. Patrick PDR, sorry, Patrick Bev David. You have different podcasts that are doing better because people are getting to a place where they're done with the fake, just regurgitating just to throw out content. They want to get meat and potatoes, and we live in a media-driven society now that they have to keep your attention. And like I said earlier, Trump is a rock star. Both the right and left keep going back to him. The difference is the right sometimes that they don't want to embrace completely. Guess what, guys? This is our guy. Fall in line, or we're going to be falling off the ship. Like at this point, we don't get the super Prince Charming as everyone wants. We get Trump. And
the point I'm
in
making,
this battle, look what the left did. The left jumped behind Kamala like it was like they didn't see who she was or hear anything she says. But yet on the right, we want to sit there and act like, well, he's not exactly the perfect who. George Bush? Weapons of mass destruction, anybody? Like, what are we talking about? Like, what are we looking for?
Yeah.
So it's really wild to me that there's so much purity testing going on with the guy who has unified the part, who got shot in the face for this country.
I'll tell you a funny story. I had a doctor in Washington, D.C., a very fine doctor, and he was a Democrat. He actually cared for Bill Clinton. He used to laugh when he would give me a proctology exam. And I would tell him, I said, you can tell Bill Clinton you stuck it up, blah, blah, blah. But
that's funny.
But he told me one day, one of Cheney's people came in, Bush Cheney people, and he was giving them a proctology exam, and he was bending over, and it took him a while to do what he needed to do. And the guy said, "What are you doing down there so long?" And he said, "I'm looking for weapons of mass destruction." He wound up with an ethics complaint for the medical exam.
No way.
Yeah, but I was thrown in the trash. But in any event, that's what brought that to mind. I like to throw a little humor in. You're the comedian, though, SIAKA. You're very talented. But what my point I was making is that we have to take action. We just can't be entertained by all of this. It's just not enough to vote. We need to take action ourselves. We don't have a bona fide, real, good faith Justice Department. It's become a Gestapo.
Right.
People will. I have to do this pitch because we need the contributions right now to donate to freedomwatchusa.org, because we have citizens grand juries. We have these cases. We're commissioning those citizens grand juries to get to the bottom of what happened in the assassination attempt of Donald Trump. There have been 2 other individuals that have been identified that tried to kill him after that. I firmly believe that the Harris-Biden regime allowed it to happen. He didn't get adequate security. They're hoping that somebody would do it and they wouldn't have blood on their hands. Or it may be an inside job, but it's inexplicable otherwise. And it's beyond imagination. And of course, the FBI, which has become as corrupt as made justice under Christopher Wray, who's a criminal in his own right, as Merrick Garland is the Attorney General, they have never, ever, the Justice Department, under either a Democrat or Republican administration, solved one of these crimes, whether it was John Kennedy's murder, whether it was Martin Luther King. Even King's family doesn't believe that James Earl Ray was the assassin. You've got Richard Jewell. They pinned it on him at the Olympics in Atlanta. You've got this guy, Stephen Paddock, in Nevada, who killed, I think about 100 people or more. The FBI goes into his apartment in Mesquite and raids it and takes all the evidence, and no one knows what the motive is. You've got Ronald Reagan's attempted assassination. That was allegedly because John Hinckley loved the actress Jodie Foster, right? That's the motive, right? So we can't believe anything the government tells us. If their mouth is moving, it's like lawyers, they're lying.
Yeah.
And so, you need a Freedom Watch, and we are going to hold the guilty accountable. We're going to try them, convict them, and seek long sentences. But if nothing else, what occurred at the Secret Service was
Yes.
it was criminal negligence. These people should be put away. It's not enough to put people on leave. That's a joke. Why are they getting paid? Why are they getting paid? They should be thrown in the Potomac River, okay, and let they can swim the shore if they want. But anyway, that's that. But tell people, SIAKA, what you've been doing, and what your plans are going forward, and how they can support you.
Well, yeah, as you mentioned before, with Freedom Watch and Judicial Watch, and even things like my case right now, and a lot of January 6 cases, the punishment is the process, and they're trying to bury a lot of us. And so, if people feel so inclined, you can go to defendsiaka.com. That's defend SIAKA. .com, and we are, by the grace of God, now we had our trial date was supposed to be October 15th, but it got pushed all the way out to after inauguration. But yet the meters don't stop running for the lawyers who are doing great for the case right now. But like all the things that we're seeing, they're using our own resources against us. So people need to look. If you're not going to make phone calls for someone, if you're not going to walk the streets for some candidate, if you don't know where to go, you got to look to help a lot of January 6ers, a lot of these pro bono legal firms that are able to, or that are wanting to put themselves out there and support individuals like myself, because it's needed. We're going up against the most powerful entity on the planet, much like the founders were back in 1776 when they defended themselves and for their freedom. So I think it's really important that people can come around, and prayers go the longest way, but financially also, can help pay the piper, if you will.
Yeah, I mean, I always say that if we had lived back in the times of our revolution leading up to 1776, and if King George had had the technology that our so-called government has today, the founding fathers never made their way to Philadelphia for July 4th. They would pick up, the NSA would have picked up what they were doing
before anything ever happened.
Yeah, picked them up. They would have been arrested and hung before they got there. And this is where we are. We're up against a much more formidable force, and these leftists want to consolidate their control. And if they win this election, they'll never give it up again. They never will. And and you can see what they're going to do. So you also get ready for the fraud that's on the horizon here. Trump will be criticized for sounding the clarion call. So will you, and so will me. But there will be massive fraud. Believe me.
Oh yeah. No, you see, there will be fraud, and again, that's why I go back. I'm watching this stuff, and I want to put this warning out there to other, Republicans, conservatives, Christians. I'm watching this debate, Trump's pro-life position or what they feel like it isn't. Right now, we came out of the most unified RNC we've had in decades, and the left came out of a discombobulated DNC. And then I'm watching us shoot ourselves in the foot by saying he's not enough. He's not pro-life enough. Look, he gave it back to us in our hands. And for example, in California, we dropped the ball for Prop 9. Where were all the Christians then? It wasn't Trump's responsibility to show up there. So if you don't like the fact that there's not a hard and left line pro-life guy or woman in there, maybe participate more in the civic duty, as opposed to sit back and point fingers at someone that is not to the level you want them to be. And to be honest, we all aren't, because we let these laws pass in different states. So people step up and show up, guys, and stop pointing the finger and expecting someone to be someone's Superman. The person can only do so much. Heck, he was a Manhattan liberal, back in the 80s and early 90s. So it's like he's going to have sensibilities different than the pro-lifers that have been doing it for decades. So we got to stop shooting ourselves in the foot. And the Bible says, be wise as serpents, but gentle as doves. Wise as serpents, meaning to be strategic, because we do have to game.
Remember that there's no political Messiah. There's only one Messiah. Okay?
Exactly.
Exactly. We have to do it for ourselves. So I always say, and I'll say it right now, and I thank you, SIAKA, for coming on. And of course, we're involved in J6 as well. We're helping you and helping other J6ers, and etc. But remember, the Father and Son will only help us if we help ourselves. I firmly believe that. He doesn't want us to be sitting around just watching Fox News, okay?
Yeah, exactly. And pointing the finger and screaming at it. You got to get involved.
You got to get involved in one manner, shape, or form, and we hope people will help SIAKA, and we hope that you'll come to Freedom Watch and join our Justice League. Check us out at freedomwatchusa.org. With a contribution over a certain amount, you'll get a free copy of my book, It Takes a Counter-Revolution, Wake Up America, which basically is a testament to the corruption of the legal profession, which we see up close and personal when it comes to Trump in particular. And we also see it with regard to yours truly and other conservative Republican activist lawyers, because bar associations, and particularly in New York and in DC, are trying to eliminate us from the practice of law because they don't want anybody to be able to challenge them in court or in a people's court, as we have. So everybody's under siege. And now it's bar associations and the Justice Department. But if Trump does win, guys, and SIAKA, give me your thoughts on this as a final thought. I think this country is going to go up in flames. The left is going to be out in the streets. They're going to be armed. Remember, most of the attacks, assassination, and otherwise that have occurred in the last many years come from the left, not from the right. Comes from
of course.
Remember, Hitler was a National Socialist. He was not of the right. Neither was Mussolini. Neither is Kim Jong-un. Neither is Fidel Castro. The left, the left is pure evil. In my opinion, they're the disciples of the devil. So get ready. Arm up. You don't use it offensively. Use it defensively if you have to. But get ready to use your Second Amendment rights if you have to. And that's my final word for today. Your thoughts, SIAKA?
I mean, I think we should always be in a position to protect ourselves. The way they seem to be moving with the gangs that are being allowed through the southern border right now, and now they, instead of to lower that number, they're lying and saying they're putting them at ports of entry instead. And so we're seeing that our government and one of their major charges is to protect the American citizens. Are dropping the ball on that. So I implore everyone to put yourself in the best position to be protected and to not rely on the government to be the answer when it's very clear this current regime does not care about American citizens. And you need to, if you're in a place where gun restrictions are really high, you can look up what's called a Burner gun. Burner guns, I think, is BYNRA. They are non-lethal, but yet they can get the job done, and they're legal in all 50 states. So it's something where, however you can do it, men, especially women, we see what the left is doing towards women right now. They are allowing creeps and mentally disturbed individuals into their, to women's spaces. So I think everyone needs to be comfortable with protecting themselves with this current regime. If Trump wins, I actually think it's going to get worse for a little bit, because there's still a lot of people still here in these cities, and they're going to make us suffer for not doing what they want us to do. And so I think we have at least 2 years after Trump winning that it gets back to some type of sense of safety.
Cities will burn, and people like Waltz will let it happen. So that being said, on that happy note, everybody have a happy Labor Day. I don't, I just like the fact that there are 3 days. I don't celebrate labor unions. When I was a kid, they threatened to kill my family. And I'm not a big fan of labor unions, believe me. But God bless you. God bless America. Thank you, SIAKA, for everything you do.